Into the All NFL Sunday Huddle, Week 5 edition. Moving schedules around because the weather in Pittsburgh would not cooperate tonight. So we're kind of rolling this, or what are we, right around halftime of this game between the Cowboys and Steelers. And so if we got to adjust and adapt just like teams do, or we could do this at 2 a.m. where Zach is in Philadelphia. That did not seem fair. Adam Hogue, Zach Berman from PHLY, and my guy Mark Carman wrapping up a long day in Chicago. Of course, with me on CHGO Bears in Chicago. Zach, how you doing? How'd you enjoy your little bye week here?
Doing great. Thrilled to be on with you guys. Appreciate the time change here. The bye week went quickly. It was a great sports weekend here. Phillies are in the postseason, so and the games are during the day, so we're able to watch those games and watch a lot of college football and NFL.
Carm, you still surviving?
Well, first of all, to get invited by my teammate Adam Hogue to go national is one of the greater accomplishments in my life. To be with you, Zach, is freaking awesome, and I'm just super excited to be here. Just long day, small day, whatever. It's an NFL Sunday. We're here to the finish, baby. So I'm excited to talk the league with you guys. Thanks for having me.
So usually, Carm, we start this by recapping or just having some brief takeaways, thoughts on the Sunday night game that's usually wrapping up right before we start this show. Other than
they should have played.
Sorry, go ahead.
The monsoon. My thought is that they should have played through the monsoon. This is football. What was that? Come on. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. That's my one big thought.
Hey, TJ Watt would have done it. He's already doing TJ Watt things with the huge strip sack on Dak Prescott in his first half. Not a whole lot of offense, though there was more offense around the league today, it seemed like, especially compared to how it had been trending the first month of the season. For those watching live, we will continue to comment and sort of do almost like a watch-along style to the Sunday night game. We don't want to do it too much for the podcast listeners, or it'll just sound very confusing. But we're going to have some fun here. We're going to start, though, by doing what we always like to do on this show, at least 2 weeks running now. Our best and worst of the day, which can be anything across the league. The best thing you saw today, and then the worst thing. We'll run it back to back. Zach, I'll go to you first on this one. You watched the most football of any of us because the Eagles did not play today. What was the very best and the very worst you saw on this NFL Sunday?
I'll start with the worst, and that was Deshaun Watson. And I was paying particular attention to the Browns today because the Eagles play them next week, so I was able to do some advanced work on them. And I thought they might get a little more momentum. I thought maybe the way they looked in the first few games might have been misleading. I was completely wrong. Deshaun Watson was awful. They did not convert a third down when he was in the game. There's that clip that's going viral right now of when he called the timeout on the fourth down. But it looks like he doesn't know how to play quarterback right now. And I don't know what the solution is there because of the contract they're tied into. We can get into that. Conversely, I'll stay in the division for the best thing I saw, and that's Lamar Jackson. He's just a joy to watch. It looked like the Ravens were out of that game. Lamar Jackson made plays that, when my 7-year-old son plays on Madden on like rookie mode, he can't even pull this off. So it was a joy to watch Lamar Jackson play in that second half tonight.
Carm, how about you?
So, a lot was made about Stephon Diggs and getting to play against his Buffalo Bills again. But what about the Josh Allen part of this? And I'm going to tee him up as my worst. 9 for 30 coming off a loss in a game where you're trying to solidify yourself back as a Super Bowl legitimate playoff contender. A lot of people were doubting the Bills, and then some people got excited about the Bills, myself included. And to dump a 9 for 30 for 130 some odd yards, that just that is disappointing. And you let your former teammate, I know you love him, but I just thought Josh Allen's day was stunningly bad. And on my best side, shout out to the 5-0 Minnesota Vikings. You're picking up Aaron Rodgers 3 times. You're getting Aaron Rodgers to say he's giving gifts to linebackers and trying to make excuses. And I know that it's not the prime Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers, Roger, whatever. But this is, still a guy who has been showing signs that the founder youth has found him. It didn't today. And I mean, nobody thought the Minnesota Vikings would be 5-0, and here they sit. Now I know that hey, long season, anything can happen, but that the Minnesota Vikings are the biggest surprise of the season. They got it done again today.
Yeah, both very good. I mean, both good calls across the board by you two. I'm gonna stay on brand, guys, and I'm gonna go special teams, okay? Because there were some big games decided on what happened on field goals today, and especially field goals that went wrong. So my best, I'm going to actually give to the New York Giants, who blocked a field goal to win the game. I mean, how often do you get a walk-off blocked field goal? Isaiah Simmons just coming right through the A-gap, doing it legally, not pushing off the lineman in front of him to leap over, not touching the center, which is illegal, just straight through, stepping through the A-gap and easily blocking the kick that would have tied the game and sent it to overtime. And not only that, it gets returned for a touchdown. Just an awesome play to end that game. And then my worst, how about what happened to the Bengals in overtime? Rarely do you see a holder botch a game-winning field goal, but Evan McPherson was there. He's a good kicker. He's ready to go. And the holder just can't hold on to the ball, which, of course, by definition is the job that he has. Just hold the ball, get it down. He bobbled it, got it down very, very late. They actually got the kickoff amazingly, but it was not good enough. And we saw two, of course, then the Ravens went right down and scored to win the game. So just two massive outcomes today get decided with field goals. And, one great block, the other just a completely bungled hold by the Cincinnati Bengals there in that spot. Amazing.
Can I get this right? Joe Burrow threw for a career-high 5 touchdown passes, and they lost?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds right. I didn't know if that was his career high or not, but I can confirm that, yes, they lost the game despite 5. I mean, the offense was going. Jamar Chase is looking good. They got to be frustrated as all hell right now in Cincinnati to be 1-4. It was a slow start, obviously, out of the gate, but the last couple of weeks they've been moving the ball. They've been scoring. They had 2 10-point leads, Zach, in this game. I know you watched it, and they just threw it away.
Yeah, I'm touching on the Bengals in our next segment because they mystify me here in that I've seen them a few times this year, and every time they had these just heartbreaking losses. You saw the Chiefs game obviously as well. They're 1-4, but they're like a dangerous 1-4 if you can say that. And Burrow was lights out. He said before the game they had to play a perfect game to beat the Ravens. He played a near perfect game. He threw a bad pick in the fourth quarter that obviously affected them quite a bit. But otherwise, he was outstanding. You hit it on the head with Chase. The defense has issues, but I don't think that's a 1-4 team that I don't think anyone wants to see going forward here.
100%. Well, good, best, and worst across the board to kind of get us started here on the All NFL Sunday Huddle. Please hit that like button if you're watching live or even if you're watching later. We like to do this show every week for you to just sort of recap everything that goes beyond just our All-City teams, which, by the way, again, we are doing this during the Sunday night game, which is different than we normally do it. But as of this moment, all the All-City teams with victory, at least 3 of the 5 so far. The Eagles, of course, did not play this weekend, but we'll see if the Cowboys can hold serve on the road and get that done. All right, the next thing we're going to do is I'm sure about blank, but I'm not sure about blank. And I'll start this off just to give us a good example. And I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about this, but going to stick with the Chicago Bears on this one, the game that Carm and I obviously were locked in on in the noon window today, at least noon central window. But I am sure that Caleb Williams is going to be really, really, really good. I am unsure, though, that he is going to be able to chase down Jaden Daniels for Rookie of the Year because he got behind. It's still pretty early in this season, but despite Caleb, I think if you're going to go head-to-head, probably you give the nod to Caleb today over Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels did have a red zone interception today. Caleb took care of the ball. But Jaden Daniels still had a pretty nice game overall. That Commanders offense humming, and as long as they keep winning games, it's going to be tough for Caleb Williams, who has a gauntlet of a second half of the schedule this season to really chase Jaden Daniels down. But regardless, I am sure, guys, absolutely sure, even after just 5 weeks, that Caleb Williams is going to be really, really good.
I have so many thoughts on this. I'm thrilled to talk to you guys about this, okay? Because I get to watch your show, but I don't get to participate in your show. And I don't mean to turn this into a Bears show. But I want to know at what point does the dialogue in Chicago turn into whether they drafted the wrong quarterback? Is that something that ever comes up? Is the fact that Caleb Williams looks good, does that eliminate the conversation about what's happening in Washington? Because I think back to 2012 when RG3 was great, but Andrew Luck just looked like the surefire pick all along, right? And so you didn't necessarily second guess it then. Is there second guessing in Chicago right now? Because you are right, Caleb Williams looks good, Jaden Daniels looks better.
Carm, you want to take that?
Yeah. So listen, it's interesting what you're teeing up here, Zach, because for me, Bears fans love to talk about that they made the greatest trade of all time. And, sending the pick, their pick, the number one pick to Carolina, of course, drafted Bryce Young and getting the 9 pick and trading back and getting Darnell Wright and ultimately ending up with Caleb and Tyreek Stevenson. And, and they have their second round pick next year. Greatest trade of all time. We talked about it on the show today. The offensive rookie of the year last year was C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud threw for 330 more yards today. C.J. Stroud is telling Caleb Williams all is going to be okay in year 2 when Caleb's struggling and Caleb's blowing him off. So this guy did historic things last year. He's doing them again in year 2, but yet Bears fans love to talk about this is the greatest trade of all time, and he wouldn't have done that in Chicago. Meanwhile, he's doing it in Houston, which is not exactly the land of the plenty down there, but it has once CJ landed. Plus the fact that now you got Jaden Daniels, who's looking phenomenal. So there's a lot in here, as to me, a couple of layers on whether the Bears did the right thing here, because as much as I enjoyed watching Caleb today, if I had to pick between Caleb and CJ right now, I would take CJ. Most Bears fans kind of twist around and somehow just say that that's not even a relevant thing, which to me, I find it to be incredibly relevant. So that's my long-winded answer to what you're teeing up.
Well, Zach, I'm interested in your response to that because Carmen and I have done this many, many times before because he just loves C.J. Stroud so much. Of course, he didn't love him before the draft. I loved him before the draft.
I didn't.
Carm loves him now.
Right.
But, I don't know. Does 304 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions do anything for anybody? I mean, don't you think the Jets would love that very Aaron Rodgers-like line today, at least vintage Aaron Rodgers? Because that's an Aaron Rodgers game right there. Instead, they got the Aaron Rodgers that threw 3 interceptions today. I think a lot of teams around the league would take 304, 2 touchdowns, and no turnovers. And that's what Caleb Williams did just week 5. And he had a pretty good game last week too. No turnovers the last 2 weeks, Zach. And maybe I'll have some time to do this before tomorrow's show. Just haven't had a chance to look at it. But I'm going to I'd love to compare where CJ Stroud was through 5 weeks last season, because this was right about the time that he really started getting going towards that rookie of the year push. But people forget the first couple weeks weren't great. Now, Caleb does have 4 interceptions. I believe CJ Stroud went deep into the season with just 2 interceptions, if I remember right, last year, because he had that really long streak where he wasn't turning the ball over. It's way too early to be having those types of conversations still. I get it. But the thing is, though, Zach, that people got to focus in on, it's not just CJ Stroud versus Caleb Williams. It's Caleb Williams and everything else they got in that trade versus just standing pat and CJ Stroud.
I was speaking about Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels more so than Stroud. Yeah. I mean, I like the deal that they made last year. I just think you looked at those two QBs 1 and 2 this year. That said, what I think is also an interesting conversation for Bears fans when I watch Washington, because I have watched quite a bit of them, is when you see Cliff Kingsbury's system there. And I saw a story in the Washington Post last week that Kingsbury said, you know, the Bears and the Eagles were interested in him. They chose other coaches. He would have gone to both those spots. That Washington offense looks far more quarterback friendly than what I've seen Caleb Williams run in Chicago.
So wait, hold on, Zach. Are you saying that if you could have right now today, you can have Daniels or Caleb? Who are you taking?
Long term, I would still take Caleb Williams, but I'm not positive on it because of the way Jaden Daniels has looked during this first month. He's so dynamic with the ball. He's so accurate. You know, he had a pass that down the left sideline today. Terry McLaurin dropped it, but you couldn't throw a better pass. And so I was kind of reacting to the Rookie of the Year conversation, whereas, you know, I think back to 2012 where RG3 was better as a rookie, but long term Andrew Luck was the better quarterback. I still think that's the outcome here. But I am I'm not certain on I'm not as certain on that as I was in 2012.
Yeah, and that, you know, getting back to how this all got teed up, I mean, that's kind of where the good thing though, Zach, is I think a lot of people feel really good about the quarterback that the Bears drafted. And did it take a couple weeks to get going? Absolutely. But you know, today looked pretty good, and I get that it can't happen against the Panthers, but this was the type of a game where you're facing the opponent you have today, and you take advantage of it. And I think that's where I'm coming at, where I'm sure he's going to be good. I am unsure that he's going to be able to hunt down Jaden Daniels for that Rookie of the Year award. But I'll tell you what, it would not shock me. You guys know this. I mean, we've all been around the league long enough. These storylines tend to change very, very quickly. And oh, by the way, in just a couple weeks, really 3 weeks now, these two quarterbacks will face each other in Washington. Bears go to London next week, then they have their bye, and then they go to Washington. And they'll be able to go head-to-head, and that'll be a fun matchup kind of looking ahead a few weeks. But let's keep this thing moving. Zach, what are you sure of and unsure of after week 5?
So we touched on this a few moments ago, but I'm sure that the Bengals are a Super Bowl contender, but I'm not sure that the Bengals are even going to make the playoffs.
Wow.
And I say that because when Joe Burrow's on your side, you can win any playoff game. And he is, we hit on it earlier, he's outstanding. The weapons he has, you know, we talked about Jamar Chase. T. Higgins was money today. I think the running game is going to develop as the year goes on. They have young offensive linemen who are going to continue to grow. But at 1-4, I'm not sure they make the postseason. So I thought going into the year they were a Super Bowl contender. I still feel that way, but I don't think they make the playoffs.
I mean, I like how you put that because, I mean, it sounds like that doesn't really jive. How can you be a Super Bowl contender if you don't make playoffs? But the point you're making is if they were to get in the playoffs, you got to take them very, very seriously. But they might have dug themselves too big of a hole here, especially, you know, defensively, just to not really be able to get stops when they need it to blow a 10-point lead the way they did today when they were humming offensively. Is that they're so much I just saw in the comments. They're a weird team. They are a weird team. They're absolutely a weird team. Carm, any reaction to that one?
Yeah, I love seeing the the forest through the trees the way Zach's trying to do it. The talent is there, but when you've got, Joe Burrow just basically speaking out truths after the game today and kind of lowering the bar for the team, that's both alarming and also like, well, maybe he's trying to motivate him at the same time and light a fire that whatever is salvageable in Cincinnati this season. I'm stunned where the Bengals are at, where they're at right now. But I do get where Zach's going, that the talent is in that room is still, if it clicks, is still there, that something miraculous, phenomenal could happen. You want me to go next here, Adam?
Yeah, go ahead. What are you sure of?
So I'm sure that the New England Patriots are terrible. And I am sure that it is not going to get better at any point in time. And I'm also sure they should not play Drake Maye until deep, deep, deep into the season, to not put him out there on this decrepit team, because you have a great chance of ruining him. So I'm not sure they're going to do that, because I keep on hearing that it's closer and closer. And I think you need to just let anybody take snaps really in New England, other than your prized quarterback that you drafted, and let him develop and let him learn. And then you can do a Patrick Mahomes style play in the last game of the season and then improve your roster and let him go in year 2. There is no reason to put him out there right now. I don't, I get that when things are this bad, you want to play your rookie quarterback to give your fans hope. The New England fans are going nowhere. Let Drake Maye sit, let him learn, let him play the last 2 weeks of the season and move on to next year. But it feels like they're going to put him out there. And I think that they might do damage to somebody who's got a ton of talent.
Yeah. I mean, we know this situation well in Chicago, Zach, where, you kind of, they're not going to play him, and then they're forced to play him. And Brissett's been bad. So you got to be tempted to throw him in there. But again, what does he really have to work with then? And is that going to stunt his growth? Because I still like Drake Maye.
Is the concern injury, or is the concern that he won't develop with the talent around him? I'm generally in favor of learning as you play. I understand the Patrick Mahomes thing. I saw it happen here in '99 with Donovan McNabb and the Eagles. But that offensive line is so bad. I was at joint practices, Eagles Patriots earlier this year, and the Eagles had a field day on them, and the Eagles haven't been able to get to the quarterback against anyone since then. So yeah, if you're worried about the long-term health, or you're worried that he might develop bad habits, having his eyes down, for instance, if that pass rusher is always in his face, I see the validity there. I think Maye gives him a better chance of winning games. I'm not sure winning games is the best outcome for the Patriots right now. Frankly, I thought today was like the best case scenario. They almost won that game. Looked like they scored a touchdown late. It did not happen, so they're in contention for the top pick. That's what the Patriots need to do. But I often think the best way to learn how to play football is to play football.
And so, admittedly, I've had a pivot on this recently, Zach, because I used to be play the guy. But just with the Caleb situation and how many people I've talked to about rookie quarterbacks in the last, 4 months since the Bears drafted him, nobody who, within deep NFL circles that I trust thinks that they should play early, despite the success of CJ, despite the success that Jaden's having, that it's just too hard. And I just playing the long game to me is just a lot safer spot, especially when you're on a bad football team. And the Patriots are a bad football team, and especially a bad football team up front. So that triples down on why you would not want to do that to them for all the reasons you named. And, and you also make a great point. You want the high draft pick, which ultimately will help him too. So there's just too many people out there that keep on underlining me. That position is the hardest position to play. There's no rush. There's no reason to rush guys out there. So I've kind of had a flip flop on how I've looked at playing young quarterbacks, despite that we see more and more success at that position nowadays.
Well, it does make you think twice when all these guys are kind of having career renaissances elsewhere. I think a lot of it just has to do with the situation you're in, and I don't know that Drake Maye got drafted in the right situation. But that's not going to change one way or the other. I do want to break in with what I think is breaking news because Justin Fields just got a roughing the passer penalty, and that's a miracle because he I don't know if he got like more than 2 of those in 3 years in Chicago. Our guy Jacob in the chat noticing that as well, and that just leads me to one more thing that I'm sure about, and that is Justin Fields is still the same quarterback, which, by the way, is not necessarily an insult as people want to read it, because I think he's a starting quarterback in this league. But if you're really watching him, like the play he just took this hit on, he's running around, and he just gets himself hit unnecessarily, exposing himself to a big hit, and he got hit high. Not sure which Cowboy got him, but he's now out of the game, and that's Kyle Allen now in, because Russell Wilson is just the emergency quarterback today. And I think any Bears fans watching that moment in this Steelers game has certainly seen that type of play before. So I'm definitely sure of that as well.
If Pittsburgh wins this game, does Fields keep that job?
They were even talking about that a little bit in the first half, because it's not like he's looking great tonight. And it sure sounds like Russell's getting closer and closer. I don't know. Would not surprise me if they went to Russell Wilson. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
I mean, Bears fans are hoping that they stay with Justin because it would be a 4th-round pick instead of a 6th-round pick. So I think Mike Tomlin should listen to this show right now, and especially me. And you absolutely should keep putting Justin out there. He's just getting better week in, week out. However, it has just been interesting, and maybe he's just doing what he says he's doing. I don't have to tell you until I have to tell you, but it certainly seems like he's leaving the door open for Russell.
By the way, Justin just came back in the game, so
there you go.
At least he'll maybe finish the snaps in this game tonight. But if it is a close thing there, if they're really on the fence about who to play, that's actually more motivation for them to try Russell Wilson. Because there's a big difference between a 4th-round pick and a 6th-round pick and the type of talent that you're going to get. All right, let's go around the league. Let's touch on some other games that happened. I'm going to actually, guys, go a little bit out of order in what I originally communicated with you guys, because the more and more I caught up on that Bills-Texans game, I think we need to talk about that a little bit more. We certainly mentioned Josh Allen earlier in the show. But, Zach, there were some questionable decisions made at the end of the game. I don't know if you want to kind of relay and walk everybody through what happened in case they missed it. I managed to catch up on it. I actually went through and watched it a couple times to make sure I understood the whole situation. I do have some thoughts on it, but take it away, Zach.
Sure. So it's a 2020 game late in the 4th quarter. Okay, so the Texans punt it with 41 seconds to go, pin the Bills back at the 3. And then the Bills, instead of just playing for overtime there, they passed the ball deep 3 straight times. Okay. There's 16 seconds goes off the clock. Texans get the ball back at the 46. And then they have they rush 5 yards, get a 59-yard field goal to win. The controversy here, or the polarizing decision, is on Sean McDermott, and there's a school of thought that he should have run. Now, Houston had all 3 timeouts. If Houston stuffs them there 3 times, Houston's still getting the ball back, potentially in a situation to kick the field goal there. Maybe they could pick up 5-6 yards, make it a goal. I just think they need to have more high percentage passes. I was watching this in real time. I had it on Red Zone. Scott Hansen was incredulous about the play calling. I didn't object as much to the decision to pass. I objected to the passes themselves. I thought you can get a screen in there. You can get something quick just to pick up a few yards, some cushion. But the way they went about it was egregious and really gave the game, or it gave the Texans a chance to kick that game-winning field goal.
Yeah, that's a great summary, Zach, because I had the same opinion as I walked away from what I caught up on. They're in a tough spot there because they get backed up, and you really what they need first and foremost is just to get one first down to at least move the chains, and that should be enough with the amount of time left, basically just 32 seconds at that point to bleed the rest of the clock. So that's ideally what you're able to get a first down. If you're not going to get a first down, at minimum, you got to get a little bit more space to get a better punt off, because when you're backed up at your goal line, you're in a quick punt situation, which just means that the punter cannot go through the normal routine, the normal walk up, drop, and timing to get off a big kick. It's always going to be a little bit shorter and a little bit less reliable in terms of accuracy, because you just got to catch that ball and get it off as fast as you can. The Bills failed to do either of those things, and I agree with you. I don't think that running the ball would have necessarily been the best solution, because I'm not sure that gives you the best chance at advancing to get a first down, and they can just bang their timeouts anyway, they being the Texans. And so you're not necessarily accomplishing anything different than what they did do. But what I do know is that would have given you a better chance to get more yardage, more space than what they ended up calling with these shots downfield. Now, we don't necessarily know the details of all these plays. Josh Allen's obviously a big game hunter, and in that type of moment is probably going to try to get it downfield. But it really just all added up to the worst case scenario for the Bills, who didn't get any space, didn't get the first down, didn't get a great punt off. It was a very returnable punt, and it basically allowed the Texans to just get right back into field goal range. And shout out to Kaimi Fairbairn too, because that was a 59-yard field goal, right? I mean, that it's not like it was a chip shot when it was said and done. So he hit that big field goal. And I did see what Sean McDermott said after the game, and he took responsibility for it. Did not want to throw the OC under the bus or anything. Joe Brady with the play calling, but that was a bad loss for the Bills in that situation. Carl, I think you're muted. Yeah, he might have been trying to switch his mic. Anyway, I that was a big game today, and the Texans obviously a big winner. Bills have now lost 2 in a row, and the Texans to at 4-1 now. How about those uniforms too? We got to comment on the uniforms. H-Town blue, they were calling it, right?
I liked them actually.
Yeah. I didn't hate them. I didn't. Yeah. At first, I did a double take, and I was like, "What's that?" And then, I guess the more and more I saw from the game on Red Zone and the highlights later, they kind of grew on me a little bit, Zach.
Yeah, it was a good color scheme. I liked it. I saw when they unveiled it during the offseason. My uniform barometer is the son I mentioned earlier, my 7-year-old son, and he saw them on TV and he wanted one. So if that's the test, they're going to be pretty popular.
Well, and a good lesson in how fast this league can switch back and forth, because pregame this time last week, right before the looks like we got Carr back last week before the game between the Ravens and Bills started. I mean, the Ravens were really kind of backs against the wall. They have a big night, and now the Bills have actually lost 2 in a row while the Ravens gotten 2 wins, and it just sort of flipped just like that.
Can we hear me now?
Yes, you sound as good as you ever have, my friend.
Okay, thank you so much. I apologize for the slight the drop out there. What I was asking is, look, Sean McDermott's a smart guy, and lots of smart coaches around the NFL. They're in this position for a reason. However, why? And you guys, can you just help me? Why do they not hire clock maintenance management, a superior position who gets paid a bunch of dough just to make those decisions for them? So in the moment, they don't have to stress about it. They know they get the smartest dude who went to Harvard, who understands these things and makes their life easier. Why has that dude not gotten a job?
Zach, I'll let you comment too, but a lot of teams have that guy. I don't know the Bills coaching staff, the ins and outs of that. The Bears have that guy. I mean, Harry Freed has that job and is in Matt Eberflus's ear for those situations. And we've still seen a couple instances this season where didn't necessarily the timeouts didn't get called at the right time, and by the way, that's not necessarily on the guy who's telling him what to do, because I think there was at least one challenge a couple weeks ago where Flucius went rogue because the play happened right in front of them, and maybe they didn't have the clearest look. They get the same television looks that we do for the guy that makes those decisions, at least when it comes to challenges. But a lot of the teams have that guy. Again, I don't know the Bills situation. Zach, what's the situation in Philly?
Yeah, so the Eagles have that, but again, you're dealing with the head coach's instincts and impulse as well, and there's public pressure. And what's interesting is that if you went by the data in a lot of these cases, it would go against what conventional wisdom is, right? So as an example, I'm watching the Vikings Jets game today, and the Vikings kick a field goal to go from 3-6, which actually worked out well for them, right? Because they ended up winning the game. But one thing you hear in talking to people who specialize in this is you don't kick the field goal to go 3-6. Is that you want to preserve either you either want the ball in your hands there, going from 3-6 still gives them a chance to win the game, the other team, and they're more aggressive on fourth downs. You saw the Jets drive downfield, have a chance to win the game. That would have been discussed more often. The Eagles did that week 2. They went from 3-6. Falcons went down, scored in the final minute of the game. The Eagles lost. And when I brought that up in Philly, the idea was how could you possibly go for it on fourth down? You got to kick the field goal. But this goes to what you're saying is that if you have that quote unquote person from Harvard, they're telling you to go by the numbers, and that often goes against conventional wisdom.
Well, and that's an important point too. There is like they're basically their job is to go off the numbers and what the numbers say, and that's important. I believe in that, but I also believe in the fact that it's the head coach's job to take that information and also take into account what he's seen, what he's felt the entire game, how the game flow has gone, what has worked, what has not worked, and add that into this specific situation that you're in and what the numbers are saying. So that's where I don't know what the numbers would have said there in this situation that we're talking about, but I just know that the play calling that the Bills went for or chose, or the specific throws that Josh Allen tried there backed up did not jive with the situation, in my opinion. And I think that that's ultimately what the biggest problem was.
Yeah, I think there you're playing against the clock and you're playing against their timeouts, right? So worst case, or I shouldn't say worst case, at the minimum, what you want them to do is burn those timeouts. So that's the argument for running the ball. But like you said, you do want to get some cushion there. So a quick pass, something that's high percentage, that's going to keep the clock moving, force them to use the timeout, maybe get 2-3 yards, even put you in a third and manageable situation. That would be preferable to what they did, which was take 3 shots, put Josh Allen under pressure, and really exhaust only 16 seconds off the clock.
See, I just call up Dean Blandino and be like, look, dude, you're great at replay, but I know that you can do this for me, and that'd be way more valuable, and you'd be in the game, and you wouldn't just be, kind of just, hovering, helicoptering, the incredible sport that is football in the NFL. Come and do this for me, and we'll pay you better than what you're getting paid right now. That's my solution. Blandino.
Who once famously just sat down at our CHGO set at Radio Row a couple years ago.
Did what? Just chill.
We did not book him, man. I think he just went to the wrong table and he sat down. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one of us sitting there at the table that knew who he was, which was good.
That's true.
Didn't our guy Nicholas Moriato admit like a couple months later that like he didn't even know who he was talking to the entire interview or something like that? It's a great story. It's a legendary story.
I think sadly me and Nick both whispered to each other, "Who is this guy?" And then you just introduced him, and then and it worked out, which is on us for the record.
I mean, he just sat down and went. I mean, it was like. I'm like, okay, Dean Blandino's here. Just threw him a question. He was just like, It was like locked in. Like this, the whole thing was planned. That was fantastic. That's the guy Carm wants making the biggest decisions in the game.
Yes, I do.
It's fantastic. All right, let's move on to a different game. I want to talk about a couple quarterback situations that were brought up in our best and worst. Let's talk Jets first. And my question on this one is, I mean, I felt this way when the trade was made, that it just was not gonna work. That, like, on paper, it seemed to be what the Jets needed to go get Aaron Rodgers and add him to everything else that they had built, but it just did not seem like something to me that was going to end well or end in a Super Bowl. Maybe it's still too early to make that call, but my question to you guys is there any way that this Aaron Rodgers Jets thing still works? Because to me, this has just been all very predictable, and I just don't see it. Honestly, even if Rodgers was a little bit better than he is right now, I just don't see how it would all come together and result in a Super Bowl. But maybe I'm just being overly pessimistic about the Jets.
I'll raise my hand on this one and admit to forever being in guys somehow can find the fountain of youth. And Aaron Rodgers had moments here, Hogue, where more than moments where he's looked like Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers is also, when he looked like prime Rodgers, he does go through blips throughout the season and then finds it in the end and gets his teams in the playoffs and gives them a chance to win. It's still early in the year. I wouldn't rule it out. I really wouldn't. I think there might be one bit of magic left in good old 12.
Yeah, I think they need to figure out how to maximize him, right? And there's too many times where they're trying to play like 2016 Aaron Rodgers out there, and that's not what you have. They can't establish the running game, so they don't have much of a play action going. He's kind of relying on, well, if you look at it today, he was going to like Garrett Wilson, but he still goes down to like Alan Lazard quite a bit, right? He still has those crutches. I don't think Nathaniel Hackett maximizes him. I think, frankly, Nathaniel Hackett is a crutch for him as well. And so until they figure out a way to make it work with the Aaron Rodgers at the stage of the career he's at now, it's not going to work, because what they did today, he's putting the ball up, he's under duress, and the play action doesn't work when you're getting a yard and a half, 2 yards to carry.
My rationale from the very beginning was, even like take out the personnel and what the roster even looked like. It goes back to what I was saying earlier when we were just talking about Drake Maye and rookie quarterbacks and when to play them, that it where you are, the organization you are in, matters so much. And Aaron Rodgers found ways to create drama in Green Bay, where in terms of an organization, they do a lot of things really, really well. And for the most part, except when it comes to Hall of Fame quarterbacks threatening to retire, they basically avoid the drama for the most part. But here you had the same situation playing over and over again. And the idea that he was going to go from Green Bay to New York City with the Jets and all of that attention, and an organization that from ownership on down has way more problems than the Green Bay Packers do, I just didn't see how that was going to end well. And honestly, I'm surprised there hasn't been more drama than there already has been. Obviously, you can't control what happened last year with the injury and the Achilles and things like that, but there's been all kinds of talk and rumors now about him and Robert Saleh and how they get along and all that stuff. But it's just like the Jets have all their Jets problems, and taking a quarterback that found ways to create drama in Green Bay of all places and think it's just going to work out in New York. It just, I just didn't see how that was going to work. And so, Carm, if you're right that it somehow all comes together and they go on some type of magical run here, and it's still pretty early, that'll be an upset in my opinion.
Well, let's just say, for argument's sake, Davante Adams ends up with the Jets. You think that changes things? Or how much do you think that changes things? Because clearly it changes things. I wouldn't rule that out either.
I think it helps. Certainly, but when I watch them, I think the offensive line is inconsistent and the running game's not present. But yeah, I mean, if you swap Devontae Adams for Mike Williams, let's say, just in that offense, not like a one for one trade, of course, I think it does enhance that offense, and there's obviously comfort there. But I don't think it's the panacea. Like I still think you're dealing with a quarterback that's not the same as he was 5 years ago.
Right.
And
And sorry, I should have said this before too, Carm. He had all those things, and he's in Green Bay, and he just still didn't win a Super Bowl there.
listen,
So,
I'm
so,
not saying
so the idea that it's going to happen in New York is with everybody older, bring the whole group back together. Yeah, hell, let's bring David Bakhtiari, who can't even play anymore, back. Too, and it's just all going to work out. It's just naive to me.
and I'm not saying it's likely for the record here. I also just I have a hard time burying the guy because he's him, and I probably am at a fault here. I still think LeBron James is going to win a championship every year. I thought the same thing with Kobe Bryant when he was old. I thought that Brett Favre was going to find one more trip down memory lane. Maybe it's just a rooting thing for guys that I've enjoyed watching, even if it's a rival.
I mean, Favre almost did in Minnesota.
It was awful close. It
Yeah.
really was.
All right, a couple more games we want to hit on. What's wrong with the 49ers? And this is kind of where my head was at. I didn't see much of this game live because we were doing our Bears post game, but catching up on it, I was stunned when I saw that the Cardinals came back and won. And I'm like, man, just, obviously they don't have Christian McCaffrey, and they've been dealing with injuries and stuff like that, but they seem to be well on their way to a win today. And then that all changed very, very quickly. And then I saw later in the night, I think when I was watching NBC's pregame show, or maybe during the delay before the Sunday night game started, that this is actually the 7th time in the last 10 seasons that the San Francisco 49ers have had a losing record through week 5. And that surprised me to see that. But then I thought about, I'm like, yeah, I guess they have had to dig out of some early holes sometimes over the last decade.
Go ahead, Zach. I can't explain the 49ers at all. I mean, was it the heat today? I don't know.
It was hot there.
Yeah. But I do think part of this is not having McCaffrey. I don't think running backs are interchangeable. If you look at Jordan Mason's stats, they jump out. But if you just watch them play, McCaffrey is obviously more dynamic, helps you more in the passing game. So I think they're missing that. But I also think that there's a game management issue here too from the 49ers. I don't think they manage games well. If you just look at their drive chart, okay, they have this lead in the second half, interception, turnover on downs, fumble, interception, right? That's their last 4 drives. That's playing with a lead against the Arizona Cardinals. Interception, turnover on downs, fumble, interception. So and this, by the way, has been a pattern. I think Kyle Shanahan is an outstanding offensive designer. I think when you look at the success that he's had, it's indisputable. But I don't think he manages games well. And this is going back. This has gone back throughout his tenure in San Francisco. And I don't think the talent disparity is what it typically is when McCaffrey's not on the field.
They had an 85% win probability late in the game today. To Zach's point, I mean, as far as managing games well, it is hard to lose games when you have that much going for you. But they did it. This one also falls a little bit under the Aaron Rodgers umbrella for me too. I wouldn't rule out the 49ers. Somehow they always seem to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think they will, but it's confusing. I mean, not scoring in the second half, that's not going to happen too often for them.
Well, and Jake Moody's injury affected them as well. So when I talk about game management, having an injured kicker factors into it. But I bring that up because I saw something similar 2 weeks ago against the Rams, where they don't manage games well in the second half.
I was just about to look up too if I can find this. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to find it in time, but
I mean,
I'm guessing the 49ers are still favored to win that division. Is what I'm going with this. Like, despite that, you got Seattle at 3-2. Otherwise, Arizona's 2-3, and the Rams are now 1-4. Like, I got to think the 49ers still the favorite.
they couldn't
Seattle
stop the
loses
run.
today.
Yeah, I think you're right, Hogue. But I'm just, San Francisco not stopping the run. That's new. So
It's true. Yeah. Seattle losing that game to the Giants that we mentioned off the top with that blocked field goal. And that was certainly one of those are probably the two surprising results of the day, right? That the Giants went into Seattle and got that win, and then Arizona going into San Francisco and getting that win. So just going to prove, Bears fans that are watching today could have gone differently. That spread was only 4, and the Bears took care of business in convincing fashion, which, you have results around the league which is, we were unanimous in thinking the Bears were going to win, but Carm, you only had the Bears winning by 1 in your prediction. I mean, a lot of people thought it was going to be a close game. I had it as a 1-score game, and I think that's, gives a little bit of credibility to what they were able to do to pull off a convincing win the way they did. And by the way, 8 straight wins at home for the Chicago Bears, which I feel like no one knows that.
do you understand, Zach, that the Bears are about to be the powerhouse in the NFL and everything is going to come through Chicago? Are you aware of that? Because, I mean, you got me and Hogue on here. He's not going to say it, but I'll go complete unprofessional and just tell you that the
I'm not gonna say that.
the Chicago Bears are it. They are him. They are it. And championships are going to flow through Caleb Williams. The 8 on his phone. He's going to pass Brady. That's what's happening in Chicago. So just get ready.
Yeah, I would bet against it, but we'll see. I think Poles and Cunningham need to do a better job on that offensive line.
Yeah, that's fair. That's 100% fair. And in Chicago, we frequently reference what the Eagles have done and what Cunningham saw when he was in Philadelphia. And part of the reasons why I think we thought that Poles, Cunningham together, hey, they'll probably build a great offensive line.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to do in the NFL because good offensive linemen don't become available usually, except in the draft and in especially rare circumstances in free agency. So that's certainly been something they've struggled with so far. Last topic before I want to let you hit on the Eagles too, before we get out of here, just coming out of their bye week and where things stand in Philly. But what can the Browns possibly do, Zach, about this Deshaun Watson thing? Because yes, the Bryce Young trade looks horrible and all that, but I mean, they traded for Deshaun and then paid him. I mean, it's by far one of the worst moves in the league's history.
Yeah, Kevin Stefanski must be beside himself right now because he doesn't have an option here. Do you bench the guy who you gave all this up for, who you gave this fully guaranteed contract for? Like, I know Denver did it last year with Russell Wilson. The contract wasn't apples for apples, but maybe the organizational investment was. But he's fallen off a cliff, and he's simply a bad quarterback right now. He's not helping them in any way. You saw last year, by the way, when Joe Flacco was in there, and shout out to Joe Flacco for the game he played today with the Colts. But when Flacco was in there, those skill players were playing well. That offensive line in front of him was blocking. I mean, I think a lot of this is on, and I should also say Kevin Stefanski was doing a good job coaching that. I think a lot of this is on Deshaun Watson. He was outstanding in Houston. You understood why teams went after him, even with as ugly as it was off the field. When you looked at it from an on-field perspective, you can see that he played quarterback like few others, but he doesn't play quarterback like that anymore. And tolerance has a lot to do with talent, and it's hard to tolerate everything else when the talent is just doesn't appear to be there.
He's getting paid $46 million next year and the year after before he's finally a free agent. And I know an NFL quarterback that's, if he was great, that'd be a borderline bargain. He's not great. And I mean, you guys are teeing it up here. Just, when you rewind back in time, this dude was model citizen. He was, he seemingly did everything right. And he was, he had a cannon arm and he was incredibly likable. And then, his off the field massages came to light, and he just hasn't been the same player since. Period. So I mean, I think his life got so rattled that he, I mean, just from a distance here, just guessing at, he lost his focus to be able to play the game, and to me, it's still stunning that it hasn't come back after. Like, I thought eventually it would settle down, he'd become the player that he was. That just hasn't happened, and I don't know what you do if you're the Browns, because you ain't getting out of that contract. That's a lot to eat. I mean, I guess you just have to do it at some point.
It's amazing to think, though, and especially when you saw what Joe Flacco did today for the Colts. Like, I don't know how they could have potentially pulled that off, but they'd be better off right now had they kept Joe Flacco.
They would be.
And like, that's not even a reach, because it's not like that roster just suddenly got awful overnight. I don't know if they're as good. I think it's still remarkable what they were able to do last year with all the different quarterbacks, but the common theme in all those different quarterbacks that were playing that weren't Deshaun Watson was they were not Deshaun Watson. And the reality is, when Deshaun Watson plays, they don't win. And it's just crazy what has happened there. And this is the one question from the show that I just don't have an answer to. I don't know that they can do anything about Deshaun Watson. They are stuck. They're stuck. They probably have to do the hard thing and just swallow that the money and somehow keep him off the field, because at 1-4 now, they have a better chance of coming back without him.
Yeah.
And it's just been a wild story. Zach, real quick.
So if I could just ask you, would you put Jameis in there then? Like, if you're Stefanski and you're probably trying to keep your job here, right? Do you put Jameis in there just to show that it's not you, it's him?
I mean, you probably have to, right? Now, of course, that comes with risk too, because it's not like Jameis Winston, established himself as a winner in the league either. I mean, that's part of the reason why he's bouncing around. He would put up big numbers in losses, quite frequently. And the Bucs. Now, granted, they went out and got Tom freaking Brady, but even since Brady retired, they are the winningest team in the NFC since 2020, I should say. So they made that tough decision to move on and have been better for it. So that's a long way of me saying I don't know that Jameis Winston is necessarily the solution, but I do know that it ain't working with Deshaun Watson. So I feel like you got to try something else.
At some point, someone is going to call up the Chicago Bears and try to pry Tyson Bagent off of that roster with a draft pick.
I bet you phone calls have already been made, Carm. You don't think the Dolphins made a phone call?
I was debating as to what I believe and what I think will and won't happen. I was going to throw Bagent in there. I was going to say the Dolphins should call. I don't know if they have. Somebody should try to see what Ryan Poles, what it would take to get that guy off, because I do think that guy can play, and he's obviously going to be super cheap. So that'd be one move for Cleveland in essence.
Zach, before you update us on all Eagles stuff, do you have anything else from today's action that you want to hit on? I mean, it's probably worth mentioning and shouting out the Minnesota Vikings going 5-0, and we covered the Jets side of that one, but we didn't really talk about what it meant for the Vikings, who are not necessarily in control, but they're 5-0 in what appears to be the toughest division in the league, and that's where you want to be right now, because it's going to be really hard to win even if you're 5-0.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for them with those turnovers to maintain that pace, but their defense is playing so well. I think that they're building these leads. They're able to manage games thereafter. If Darnold cuts down on turnovers, they're going to be tough. They're going to be real tough. Building that cushion is huge. elsewhere in the league. I watched mostly the 1 o'clock games, right? But I thought that Flacco was really impressive, and I'm curious to see. Obviously, Anthony Richardson's the guy there. I'm curious to see though if they slow play that injury in any way, just because they're moving the ball effectively with Flacco out there. Yeah, we mentioned that Giants Seahawks result. That was a surprise, but the Giants are a peskier group than I expected. Meanwhile, the Rams look cooked right now if they don't, until they get those wide receivers back. But that offense just doesn't have it. Didn't watch much of the Broncos Raiders game, but how about the Broncos at 3-2? That's impressive. I definitely did not see that coming. And then yeah, so that those were the games on my notes today.
Thank you for reminding me about the Broncos situation because, one, we did touch on Houston's uniforms, but by far the best uniforms in the league today were what the Denver Broncos were wearing with those retro bright orange unis. They look so sweet with the blue. And did you see Bo Nix yelling at Sean Payton on the sideline at one point? I'll be honest with you. I didn't get the whole story post game on what was going on there. I saw later in the game they seemed to be just fine, but that was quite a moment for the rookie QB who hasn't exactly been lighting up the scoreboard or anything to be yelling at Sean Payton. But I just found that fascinating. And yes, I mean shout out to the Broncos, 3-2 at this point. Did not expect that. And these rookie QBs who are playing are winning football games. They have winning records.
It's a badge of honor nowadays to have a blow up on the sidelines. There was another one that happened today where people were like, "Yeah, I was so happy that happened when we were screaming at each other because it just showed that we cared." So good on you, Bo Nix. This is the trend. Let's have it's a sign of that we can figure it out in the moment. It's growthful.
Yeah, that was the Jags game. That was Trevor Lawrence, Gabe Davis.
Yeah,
on the
that's right.
sideline.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and there was Coleman Shelton yelling at Caleb Williams at the line of scrimmage about how a blitz was coming.
Now that was sweet. I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved
Caleb handled it well. That was great. All right, Zach, your Eagles were off this weekend. However, Browns, Giants, next 2 weeks. Do you consider these must-win games?
Yeah, with the way the Eagles have been playing, they need some momentum here, right? 2-2 isn't horrible when you consider the fact that AJ Brown missed 3 of these games. Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith missed a game each, but it's the way they played. There was obviously much more expected of them. The way they played in Tampa was unacceptable for them, and they had what looked like a soft, or they enter what appears to be a soft portion of the schedule. In that going into today, so I haven't put up the records from today yet, but going into today, their next 4 opponents were combined 3-13. There were 10 teams with losing records going into today, and the Eagles play 6 of them, including the Giants twice. So there's opportunity for the Eagles, but they need to get this moving fast. Jalen Hurts needs to cut down on turnovers. Vic Fangio's unit needs to play with more consistency on defense, and they need to get A.J. Brown back because the one game they had A.J. Brown that scored 34 points against the Packers in Brazil. And since A.J. Brown's been out, the offense hasn't looked nearly as effective. So that's a long way of saying that it's still early for the Eagles, but they had a bad September, and they need October to look different.
Yeah, well, it will be certainly interesting to see if they can win those next 2 games because if they don't, I think whatever chatter there has been about Nick Sirianni's situation will just, continue to grow and grow. But that'll be something to watch. Bears headed to London.
I would say that Sirianni needs the Phillies to win, to get some heat off him. But the reality is they're going to talk about the Eagles here no matter what. So even a Phillies World Series won't help him.
Yes.
Early in the season, are you giving a thumbs up on the move for Saquon?
Yeah, Saquon's been their most consistent player so far. But you also look at the opportunity cost. If they paid $3 million less for a running back? Could that have been $3 million more for an edge rusher? Could it be Jonathan Bernard instead of Bryce Huff? It's a fair question, but I think the Saquon move has frankly exceeded expectations. It's the moves on defense, Bryce Huff, Devin White, even C.J. Gardner-Johnson, that have fallen short of what they needed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was expensive, but Saquon's been pretty damn good so far. There's no question about that. All right. Well, the Bears are headed to London. So are we. And by we, I mean Mark and myself tomorrow. We're representing All City. We're going to be a huge crew out there all week as the Bears get ready to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that should be a lot of fun. A little bit closer than Brazil, Zach, but
tougher time difference though, right? So,
yeah. I'm not sure I actually probably better to not have the time difference, even if the flight's longer. It's probably the better solution because it's going to be a little, that is the adjustment.
Yeah. I would prefer the longer flight to the jet lag any day. Yeah. Although I would have taken a week in Brazil. I did like 48 hours in Brazil. So a week in London, I'm pretty envious of you guys.
I'm sorry, I'm catching up. You went to Brazil for 48 hours?
A little bit more, yeah, thereabouts. I left because the Eagles. That's how the Eagles did it. Is they left after practice. The game was Friday. The Eagles left on Wednesday. They flew back after the game. So I was there. For 2 full days, basically. Yeah. And then flew back. Yeah.
Because you don't have the time change. I mean, the Packers did the same thing. It's just like going on a longer flight to whatever the road game is you have. Because you don't need like a full adjustment to a 6-hour time difference like the Bears are going to have.
Yeah, exactly.
You should have taken a week off. I know it's in the middle of the season, and that's not what we do. Yeah. But I would have completely supported you.
It's what you do during training camp.
Listen, I gotta go. I have to do I gotta go to family camp. It's a thing, Zach. Hogue hates me for it, but you know what? I'm willing to take on that hate for the good of family. Damn it! Even when I went without a family. This does not belong on the national show, but hey, it's turned out.
I like it. I like it. Add some personality. It's good stuff.
Yeah. A lot of people are gonna have to go back and listen to some August CHGO episodes to understand that conversation there, which is fine. I hope you enjoyed your bye, Zach, and thank you for staying up late. Timing works out. We can go watch the fourth quarter of this finale between the Steelers and the Cowboys. After we talked about Justin earlier, he threw a touchdown pass, and then Dak Prescott came back and threw a pass too that helped my fantasy team. So we'll a little bit of different timing this week, but appreciate everybody being here as we went through what was really a wild day across the NFL. By all means, we kind of had the boring game with the Bears and Panthers in Chicago, but good stuff. Make sure you are subscribed to the All NFL channel as well. You might be watching this on CHGO or PHLY. Go click over and search the All NFL channel to subscribe over there. Hit the like button. Greatly appreciated. Also available on the All NFL podcast feed as well, just like all of our other shows across our markets are available as a podcast wherever you listen to them, so you can check that out. And we appreciate you being here. Week 5 in the books, and we'll start to turn the page to week 6. We'll talk to you next week.
We all silly like the mayor.